you've all received your STEM kits, and you've got a number of sensors, you've got some advanced add-on kits. You've been using this core, this ESP32 core, and that is perfect for getting going and starting with your experiments, etc. And this session is primarily for educators. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking you through the learning management system and what resources are available, and also what you can expect to come down the line over the next few weeks. Can you see my browser now with the Canvas learning management system? Okay, so
Yes.
if you're on home, what it's going to do is it's going to take you to just a list of modules that are already there. And because you have teacher status and teacher access, you can see what we haven't published yet. Your students won't see that what we haven't published. They will only see what actually is published. What we really like to do is we like to use the discussions tab if there are any questions, especially regarding the learning management system itself. We find that is really useful. We do have a Discord server that the students really enjoy, but what I've found is that those of us older, out of our teens, let's put it that way, those of us out of our teens actually prefer this more structured way of questions and answers and collaboration, etc. So we're supporting both. I have a young woman who is still in her teens. She's 19 years old, and she's looking after the Discord server side, and then primarily myself, I'll look after the discussions and questions, etc. The announcements, if we do have any announcements to make, we will make it here. But what we'll also do is we'll also send a follow-up email, because not everybody is going to look here, constantly. We're quite aware of that. But depending on how you've set up your profile in Canvas, if there is an announcement, you should receive an email alert about that. So we use announcements, we definitely use discussions. And then what we also do is we use the calendar. So here's the calendar. So what there is that we can view the calendar. Now the thing is, what it's going to do is it's going to show you my calendar for Canvas. So there may be, oh no, this month is actually quite clean. But usually what happens is I'm running a number of different programs in parallel. So this would look quite scary. But what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start putting the workshops into this calendar. However, I will send out the calendar invitation as well for you. So you don't have to worry about it being in one place and not the other. So in order to go back from the calendar, I need to go via my dashboard. So you can see here, I've got a number of courses that I'm managing at the moment. So that is why sometimes that can look a little bit scary. Great. So yeah, so this is Canvas. And if I just take you through, we have got an introduction. There's a bit of a preamble here, which just outlines why we're using Canvas, the advantages of using it, what the program is about. And one of the things that I'd really like to point out is that there are assignments in this learning management system, but those are by no means mandatory at all. They are nice to have. They're nice resources that you may want to have. You may want to export them to use elsewhere. And also each assignment does have a rubric attached to it. So it's quite nice, Susan, especially for yourself from a high school perspective. And Suhail, for yourself as well, it's quite nice to have those. It's an experiment, experiment description with the learner sheet or the student sheet, as well as the rubric. So, that really helps. Mike, I don't think you're necessarily going to find these very useful, but if your team decides you're going to do some outreach at some schools or something like that, if you want some ideas, they're here. They're quite nice experiments. So if you would like your own version of this course, I'm very happy to make a copy for you and then hand it over to you, and you can have it. If you want to export the materials, by all means, your teacher access rights, they do allow you to export. But if you would like me to export it for you, I'm also very happy to export it for you. That's not an issue. What it'll do is it'll export it so that you can import it into another learning management system. So that can usually be quite useful. So I mentioned here that we do have the Zoom sessions getting up and running, the Discord with the link, and then yes, announcement discussions, frequently asked questions. So we do have a page of frequently asked questions that really apply to this course. However, we've also got a link to our FAQ page on our website, and we update that constantly. Whenever we get a question in any of the courses or any of the different channels, and if it's something that we haven't received before, then we put it onto the frequently asked questions. Yeah, and there's no explicit required outcome for this course. This is for you, use it, don't use it, basically. It's there for you to have. So here I have just a description of our project, this International Space Station rideshare project, and a little bit of a program overview, some of the learning outcomes that you may want to have from it, and then the participants and basically how people are participating. So we have different levels of participation. So for example, with Mike, his program is being sponsored by the state level Space Grant Consortium, the Montana Space Grant Consortium. Suhail, your program is being sponsored by a foundation in South Africa. Susan, your school is paying, your school's paying for it yourselves, etc. So we have different levels of engagement, whether the school's paying for it themselves or the university's paying for it themselves, or whether they have somebody else paying for it. And then we have Princeton University, who actually originally came up with the idea. Mike Galvin and his students came up with the idea. In fact, it was one of his graduate students presented this project at the CubeSat Developers Workshop earlier this year in California. And that was his project, is actually designing how we could have a ride share with nanoracks. So what we have is that with Mike and his team, they've been using our xChips since 2017. So they kind of like do their own thing. And they've got 3, possibly 4 experiments that they're going to fly. But they just like carry on their own, and that's fine. So that's also a different way that they are engaging. So if we go to this next page here, where I've outlined the phases and the milestones of the project. So the first milestone was to sign up, and you all have, so that's great. We can check that box. We've achieved milestone number 1. And then this phase that we're in at the moment, phase 1, is all about onboarding, initial training, and doing some experiments. Doing experiments with those STEM kits that you have, with those those sensor boards that you have, maybe using, the perf boards to attach some Adafruit or SparkFun sensors or whatever. But really, this period now is a lot of playing and experimentation and all of that kind of thing. And what we would like is, during this phase that your students decide on what their experiment's going to be. So next week, you're going to be receiving your, what we refer to as the new core, which is actually your flight hardware. And you're receiving that, as well as these SD card interfaces. So your SD card interface goes into the, let me just, for the recording, I'm just going to pin myself. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to pin myself. Here we go. So this board is the ESP32S3, and it has this 20-pin connector on it. And what you do is that you, parallel with the board surface, you can put in this SD card interface. So this is really important, because the way we're going to collect the data on the International Space Station is by writing the data to this SD card. So as soon as possible, really try to start experimenting with how you can get the data onto the SD card. When you receive these new cores, you'll also receive a number of links, and that is going to take you to some sample code that takes these normal standard boards that you have, like, for example, these normal sensors, like this volatile organic compound sensor. This one will, with that sample code, will write the data to the SD card, for example. So at least you have some working examples that you can start using. And then in your follow-up shipment, you're actually going to receive the LoRa radio that you can also attach to this. So, Mike, I think your students are going to find that quite interesting, because they're going to learn a lot tonight about LoRa, how LoRa performs. And so they'll be able to build a tiny test ground station. They'll be able to have a ground station, a flight station, all of that kind of thing, using your flight hardware. And then they can just redeploy it to the International Space Station when they're ready to do that. So you are receiving multiple of these. Sorry, he's upside down. Multiple of these cores as well, and they will work with all of the sensor boards that you've received. There's 2 sample softwares. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take you to that site where Domino 4. There we go. Okay, so let me share my screen again. So these are the links that you will receive with instructions and everything, but I'm showing it to you now. It already comes to you with a bootloader on it. Part of our test process with every single of these components that our team went through was also to make sure that they could put the bootloader on, and then they could test it that way. And you'll see here is the starter kit code. So the first thing you're going to do is literally drag and drop the starter kit code to that. And what we have is we've included the accelerometer in this starter kit code. In fact, all of the sensors are there except for the soil moisture sensor. And the reason for that is that the soil moisture sensor and the accelerometer use the same pins. So it gets very confused. So we have a separate set of code for if you want to use the soil moisture sensor, and that excludes the accelerometer. Here you can see TinyGS ground station. There's some MicroPython example, and then this is the I2C scanner. We actually use this ourselves just to make sure that when we test all of our boards, we're actually using this I2C scanner. And then this Quest, it's not a typo, it is a double S. This is a project that's being run in Virginia in the USA at the moment, which is it's a supersonic NASA plane that apparently has a very low noise sonic boom or whatever. And we're doing a community science project across Virginia with a sound pressure sensor. I don't know if I have one here, which we've only produced to run this test. We're going to see how it performs. And if it does perform well, then we're going to bring it into our main repertoire. But that's actually quite, we think that's going to be quite an interesting sensor in terms of sound pressure. Of course, it's very directional. It's like the light sensor. It's unbelievably directional. So you can see here, there are these different examples, and literally what you'll do is you'll download it and then you'll drag and drop it. So yeah, but I'm gonna send you all of those instructions. So if we go back to Canvas, where was that? Sorry. Let me try again. There we go. And by the way, please interrupt me at any point. So yeah, so here are the phases and the milestones. So the milestone for after phase 1 is for you to have decided, and you and your students have decided what your experiment is going to be, and that you feel that you will be ready on March 15th, the Ides of March, to be able to ship that experiment. So you don't need to have built it and developed the code and done everything by this deadline, which is end of December. We just want an indication from you if you believe you're going to be ready. If you believe you're not going to be ready, that's okay. We'll pencil you in on the manifest. And then if you aren't able to ship your kit on March 15th, then you automatically go onto the manifest for the next launch. So not all is lost by any means. So yes, so for milestone 2, by the end of December 2024, you will need to confirm that your payload will be ready to be shipped to MaxIQ space for integration by March 15th, 2025. Then phase 2 is those 10 weeks between end of December, so it's January, February, and first 2 weeks of March. And that is when you actually finalize your payload and you do as much testing as possible. Are we writing the data to the SD card? Can we retrieve it? Can we analyze it effectively? One of the groups that participated in the high altitude balloon challenge that we had with NASA in August this year, when they received their SD card back, they found that every time that it got powered up, every time the circuit got powered up, it overwrote the data file. It didn't create a new data file. And with experiments like this, and with the high altitude balloon launches, they get powered up, powered down, powered up, powered down all the time as everyone's doing their different tests. in the whole integration process. So really make sure that it's not good enough that it's just writing data to the SD card. Make sure that you can power cycle it multiple times and that it actually creates a new file each time. So that is really something for you to look out for. We also found with some, I think it was, can't remember which one it was. What it was is we discovered that one of the sensors that had been put onto one of these perf boards, it was drawing a lot of current. And it wasn't crashing anything, so it wasn't shorting anything out. Our power supply was allowing it to do it. However, we were only giving it 3.3 volts. We weren't giving it I think it needed 5 volts or something like that. So their circuit was running, but that sensor wasn't posting data. So they had to then change that and make sure that they could actually get everything running effectively, because it looked like everything was working. But when they went to their folder, they could actually see that those data sets from that sensor weren't there. They were just empty. So so all of these things you need to have a look at. But we are going to be getting together multiple times during this phase, so you can really share what you're doing and what tests you're doing, and everybody can share what they've found. And so together, collaboratively, we'll all be okay. But it does mean that you have to do a lot of testing to make sure that everything is okay. And it's guaranteed we're going to learn something new. At least one thing is going to crop up that we haven't seen before. And that is what I realized as a chemical engineer. For 24 years, I was in industry as a chemical engineer. And it didn't matter if it was exactly the same process that I was implementing, but just on another site, there was always something that was different. It was the conditions, or it was the environment, or whatever it was. It was always like, there's going to be a surprise. Let's factor that in, because there is always something that we're going to learn from everything. So yeah, as much testing as possible, drop tests, all of these things. Put it in the freezer, take it out of the freezer, put it in the trunk with those huge speakers, that blast the music like this. Great experiment to see if it can handle the vibration, all of these things. Have a lot of fun testing all of that. And then phase 3 is we go to the International Space Station. Everybody's experiments sit there for 4 to 6 weeks. Everything comes back, and then you all receive your payloads back, and we do some analysis. And so milestone 3 actually is that payload return. So, and the reason why we have that in as a milestone is because NanoRacks, our flight provider, they only get their final 10% once they return everything. So that's the arrangement we have with them. It's all conditional on it coming back, so that we can analyze the data and present it, etc. And what you'll find is that there's going to be a number of different opportunities for your students to present the data. And this is the first time NanoRacks are doing this ride share on the International Space Station. This is the first time where it's not individual experiments going to the International Space Station. So this just outlines the program itself. Then we have another page here, which is basically a teacher guide. So with teacher status, there's a bit of a guide for you here, how you can set up different things. You're probably not going to need the grade book, but it's here anyway. You could set it up. And then also how you can build your own course, because that's what I do as well, is I build new courses by importing from multiple different courses. And then Stanford University has published a course on how to develop Canvas courses. And that's really great. There's a very nice manual and videos at that link. And then here is also, Mark, adding teachers to the course. I'm adding students to the course. How you add them. So you can either upload a CSV file, or otherwise you could just literally copy and paste it in. So there is something here. And then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to show you another way of doing it. So what we found is that sometimes in an institution, Canvas can be blocked, or the email server can be quite sensitive. So what we have here, if you go to settings and you go to the bottom of settings, and you can access settings because of your teacher status, you'll see over here, this course has enabled open enrollment. Students can self-enroll in the course once you share with them this URL. So I'm going to copy and paste this whole line of text here, and I'm going to put it in the chat. So if you're finding, first of all, it may be a schlep to enroll the students yourself, and maybe you actually do want them to self-enroll. So what you can do is when you send them that link, they can then enroll themselves. So that's another way of how they can enroll themselves. So yeah, so there we have it. There's also a student guide, and then, as I mentioned, the frequently asked questions and the troubleshooting. So this is really your introduction module. And then what we have over here is phase one, this phase that we're in at the moment. And so I've got the unboxing guide over here. And then here we have that onboarding workshop. What I did is I had the agenda and edited the videos together. And so we have a link to the video there. So as we go through, you will see that what I will be doing is that I will be adding the different workshops. So I will have an edited version of this workshop and the identical one that we had yesterday, put that together, and then also upload the link. So you will see that it'll build as we go. The different workshops will start coming in over here under that phase. So at that point, I'm going to stop for a breath of air and a drink of water. So are there any questions or comments at this point? Okay. I thought Susan was reaching for like the unmute thing, but maybe not. No, don't worry.
Oh, is this being recorded?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. Great.
I guess I have one quick question. So like when we have access to the LMS, we're just seeing our students in there, or are we seeing everybody as students are added?
You're seeing everyone's students.
Gotcha.
What you can do is we can create a group for your students so that they can actually be in a group. Mike, if you would like your students alone, I'm very happy to make a copy of the course for you.
No, that's okay. I was just curious on the layout of it. Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. Okay, good. Great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back there, and then I'm going to show you actually how that works. So if we go to people, here we go to people. here you can see everybody that's been just enrolled, because what I do is that I just go here, I go to add people, put in the email address, decide, we decide on the role. So you can also decide on the role. You can enroll fellow teachers, you can enroll fellow content designers, or you can enroll your own students as you wish. So you put the email address, and then on the next page it's just ask if they're not enrolled already in a Canvas course and it hasn't pulled their name through automatically, then you can just add their name. So what I've done is that this is just the list of everybody who has been enrolled. But what we can do certainly is we can have groups. So we haven't created any groups yet. But what you can do is you can create a group set. So what you could do is you could even have multiple groups from your institution if you want to have your students work in teams. So what I can do after the session is what I can do is that I can create a group for each participating team. But I'm going to leave it up to you how you want to do that. And then what I can do is, let me actually just do a group set quickly so that you can see how it works. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to say let's say I'm going to have a MaxIQ space alumni group, MaxIQ space. Yes, alumni. Let's just do that. And what we can do, there we go, alumni. Thank you for checking that for me. Allow self sign up. That's absolutely great. What I can do is that I can say I want to create. I'm probably going to have 3, and then I'm not going to limit how many group members I can have there. Okay. And then I'm going to go save. And now you can see I've got these 3 alumni groups, the MaxIQ alumni groups. And so here is everyone. And then here is this group set. So what you can do is we can have multiple group sets. And if you want to have your different teams there. What I can do here as well is that by clicking on these 3 little dots over here, I can actually edit that name. So maybe I want to have, I want to say edit, and I want to say MaxIQ space R&D. Okay. And then I can go save. And then, Susan, are you enrolled as a student as well? Should you be enrolled as a teacher? Where are you? Okay, interesting, teacher and student. Okay, that's all right. So the thing is that I'm gonna put Susan in the group for now, and then I can also remove her from that group. So what I do is that I simply drag and drop there. Okay, and then we can see that Susan's in that group. What she can do is she can either leave herself, or otherwise, if that assignment was incorrect, I can just drag it back there. So what we find is that usually students they sign up to the different groups that they want to be in. So if I were to go to, so I haven't enrolled myself as a student, but that's what I should do as well in this course. And then I could actually just move into the group that I wanted to be in. So that is how the groups work. And then if we have a look here and we say this R&D team, what I can do is that I can actually have a homepage for that group, and that can have its own announcements and discussion and people and everything else. So you can almost have your own little skunk works within the larger course, as your group. Okay. So that is about people. Then what we have is we have a number of different STEM experiment ideas. So what we've done is we've developed some experiments to the full extent, where you have, let's say, for example, let's have a look at UV radiation on different materials. This is a great experiment to conduct, especially if you're doing a high altitude balloon project, something like that. So there's a description over here. Then what there is there is the experiment itself. You know, how to conduct the experiment with the procedure. And then what you can do is you can, if you wanted to, you can add a rubric. All the rubrics are here. So if you see on the left hand side, there's a whole bunch of rubrics. So let's actually go back to that, and we can say, okay, let's add a rubric. And what we can do is we can say find a rubric in this course, and let's go through to we can use this rubric. Okay. So yeah, so what you can do is you can find a rubric that you can add, and if you want to, you can edit the rubric. So so if we go back here, go through this. There's some quite nice ideas. Also, maybe have your students go through them. They can come up with some ideas for themselves. Then what we have is with the advanced add-on kit, there's a number of different ideas that you can conduct. So what we would normally do is, using this standard core that you received with your STEM kit, you would need to update the code so that you could add those advanced add-on sensors. But since you are receiving this new core next week that can handle all of the sensors, you don't have to worry about that. But have a look at the experiment ideas, because those are quite nice. Different experiment ideas. There was one here that was a seismograph. That's quite fun. You know, if you're in an area where you may need a seismograph, we're very lucky. The African continent is very stable, so we don't have much use for a seismograph unless we're living in a mining town. But yeah, the continent is very stable, because with continental drift, everybody is moving away from Africa, so it's quite interesting. And then, of course, on the other side of the world, where the plates start meeting, that's where there's those Pacific Islands and all of that kind of thing. However, I digress. So yeah, different ideas about experiments. Conduct as many experiments as possible. Get to really understand how the sensors work, what conditions they work well in, how long they take to acclimatize. So, for example, the light sensor acclimatizes instantaneously. The accelerometer gives data instantaneously. This volatile organic compound sensor, I'm going to stop and I'm going to just, so you can see it. Sorry, it's got a red dot on it because I'll use it for another application. This takes a while to actually warm up. So give it a good 2 minutes, this volatile organic compound sensor. The weather sensor, which does temperature and relative humidity, mine's being deployed somewhere. Yeah. So actually I have a board here. So this is how we're going to manufacture the PCBs, and they come in these panels, and then we place the components on with pick and place machines. So these haven't, but they've got the symbol on anyway. So the one with this symbol, which is the weather sensor, air temperature and relative humidity. This one takes 30 seconds to acclimatize. So, when you're doing an experiment with comparing conditions in the shade versus full sun, indoors, outdoors, etc., give it a while to acclimatize. Yeah. So get to know the sensors. Put different sensors onto these perf boards. Experiment. Make sure that they work for you. All of that kind of thing. Over the next November, December. Yeah, to design your experiment. Mark Galvin, I see that you've joined us. Sorry, I didn't see you joining.
Yeah, sorry, I just got here late. I'm stuffing my face,
Okay.
so I didn't think you needed to watch me eat on video.
No,
but
no. Sorry, I didn't want you to think I was ignoring you or being rude. I'm so sorry.
never.
Okay, no, that's great. Perfect. So, Mike, what we've been doing is we've been going through the learning management system and the different content that is there. So, and this is the point that we were at, where we have this.
Yep, I've been watching
A
for the
long list of experiments. Yeah.
I started
Mark?
watching when you were making groups, and then got into all your, and so I saw all of this about the experiments. It all looks great. I mean, I think we're doing something a bit different with our students, but we'll try to figure out how some of this content fits in.
The thing is that you don't need to use it. None of it's mandatory at all. It's examples for you to have. Use it, don't use it, whatever.
Yeah, we'll sign all of our students up to it, and I think I was surprised that, so we have them ideating their own ISS missions and their own balloon launch missions, and I was a little surprised at how uncreative we all were, given the given the limited environment. Usually I'm the uncreative one, and then our students are able to come up with much better mission ideas than I can. But we were all a little bit grasping at straws for what to do in the ISS. Although now I've had some crazy grad students come up with some really wild ideas. So stay tuned. But yeah, well, I'll have my undergrads look at all the experiments for inspiration for the balloon launch and the ISS mission, since we are apparently not creative enough to come up with too many great ideas.
Yeah, and that's also why it's quite nice to have, these discussions. It's because we can get ideas from one another.
Yeah.
So we could do that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to derail the curriculum, but maybe like the quorum. What Princeton is doing is, instead of a lesson plan, we're running the project as a experiment design competition. So we have individuals and small sub teams all competing. We've bought three slots on the launch, and we have individuals and small 2 or 3 student teams competing to ideate, design, build, test, and flight qualify the most interesting ISS experiments, and then we'll be having them present to a panel of Princeton space faculty and experts, I guess towards January or February, and the top 3 teams will get our launch slots.
Great. That's great. Absolutely. Perfect.
Okay, I'm
And
gonna go
then,
back to stuffing my face now.
yeah, go for it. Must be nice to be able to eat. I was telling everybody earlier that I was at the dentist earlier this morning, so I feel like it's over here and that I sound drunk, but anyway, I'm not drunk. We actually live right next to a wine farm, a wine estate. So I could actually say that it's the fumes, you know, coming over the fence. So let me go back to that. So that's really where we are right now. Susan, you've seen these before, these challenges relating to sustainable development goals. We've put them in here. And that's also because what you may find is that you've got students who are not necessarily interested in space, but they're interested in other STEM subjects and other topics. So maybe they would be interested in using those same kits that you have for these projects, because you've got plenty of xChips and you're only going to fly one set anyway, and you're getting it back. So there's a lot of different things that you can do with these. And then we have a module over here around mission patch design, because there's a whole artistic methodology around and a rule set around mission patch design. And we've included just a fun little quiz here about, famous mission patches and things like that you can use. So so at some stage you are going to want to do a mission patch, so that is going to be useful. So that is where we're up to. We're not putting any more in than phase 1 for now. Mike Galvin, I mentioned earlier that early next week, everybody's going to be receiving their updated cores, and with the SD card interface over here. So I'm just putting that in. So you've got a number of SD card interfaces with a number of these cores. So there it is with the SD card interface in it. And then, so we're going to be ready for those, the next series of workshops. And we've developed sample code for those to simply we'll be able to drag and drop them. They already come with the bootloader on them. And then the new version of the extended core, which is the one that you are going to be using on the International Space Station, that is that's still being tested at the moment. So we haven't got into full production on those yet. However, it's exactly the same. It's exactly the same. It just doesn't have the connectors to connect it to the frame, but it's identical. So whatever you're doing here, you'll be able to use on that piece of hardware when you receive it. So that's where we are at the moment. Please, any questions?
Yeah, so our team has a question. They're very excited about all this. And when we're looking at that because we do a lot of circuit board design, embedded systems in our lab. They want to know if they make a PCB that's of the same form factor as the perf board, or is that something that we're allowed to do? So it still plugs into your ecosystem, but it would be our own PCB versus the perf board. Is that an okay avenue for us to go down?
I think that would be absolutely okay. Mike Galvin, what do you think? I mean, I know we don't want to necessarily speak for Bianca, but you've got a very good understanding of how Bianca thinks.
Sorry.
I've caught him with his mouth full, you see. That's what happens.
Yes, we've done a few boards like that to replace the perf board. And I think it's a great idea. I mean, it's certainly no more of a stretch in terms of launch qualification than just soldering things to the perf board itself. So I would think Bjarke would be fine with it. I mean, of course, the same guidelines we're talking about everywhere else is no liquids, no biologicals, no secondary no ancillary batteries, nothing that's going to raise any ISS safety eyebrows. But if you just feel constrained by the holes in the perf board, you can put your own integrated devices on your own board. I think would be fine, and we've done that a few times. I would say what's most helpful for us in doing that, and it's probably not posted yet, so it's probably something you'd want to ask directly from Judy and Bjarke, is there's an Eagle file of, like, I don't think MaxIQ needs to be publishing all of their proprietary design data to everybody, but they do have an Eagle file of just a blank xChip. So it gives you the edge connectors. It shows you how things route from edge to edge to edge. Without giving you all the secret sauce, at least you know how to define the edge connectors. And they may even be willing to give you the full file for the whole perf board.
Yeah, either of those would be great. Yeah, we do our design in Fusion 360, so the Eagle files will port right into there just fine. If that's something they were, I mean, if not, we have calipers and microscopes. We can figure out the interface, but
the only hard part is getting.
Don't worry, we'll share that with you. Don't worry.
Yeah, the only hard part is getting the edge connector right. So you want to copy paste the edge connector from something, but then doing the rest of it with calipers and stuff is pretty easy.
Yeah, and we would just do just passive I2C sensors is all we're thinking of. I think it's more they just like the challenge of making the hardware. I mean, because that's primarily what our lab does. So they're pretty excited about that idea.
It's a funny trend. Like MaxIQ keeps rolling out these beautiful click together kits, but they keep sucking in labs who like want to start redesigning the whole thing.
Right.
So yeah, we're in the same boat.
Only those that are charming and that have the name Mike.
Yeah, we are. I would say, Mike, we are not their target customers, but they are tolerating us.
Right.
No. We really like you. We really like you because you come up with great ideas. Yeah. Our creativity is very limited. So yeah, no, absolutely. Mike Wallach, I'm going to get those files through to you. Absolutely no problem. I'm also very happy that you have just a one-on-one chat with Bjarke, and he can take you through all of that and everything. That's great.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you so much.
We welcome it. Yeah, we welcome it. Absolutely.